Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending today's Planning Committee meeting for the West Planning Committee. Welcome to the October meeting. We're not expecting a fire drill today, so if the alarm sounds, please leave the building by the doors as indicated, and the gathering point is at the rear car park. The meeting is being recorded and will be streamed to YouTube. Therefore, any members of the public present should be aware that they may be recorded even if they are not participating in the meeting. If this causes you any concern, can you please let me know now? Okay, thank you. Item 1 is apologies. I've had apologies from Councillor Andy Hadley, Councillor Ross Henley, Councillor Dave Mansell, Councillor Stephen Pugsley, Councillor Rosemary Woods, Councillor Gwyl Wren. The attendees, and I've had apologies, sorry, from Andy Sully as well. So the attendees today are Councillor Faber High, Councillor Dawn Johnson, Councillor Norman Cavell, Councillor Caroline Ellis, and myself, Simon Coles, and Eric Perry. No substitution has been suggested. Item 2, which is the minutes from the previous meeting, 20th of August 2020. Is each will wish to assign those as a true record of that meeting? So proposed, thank you. Agreed, thank you. I'll sign those when you produce them. Okay, thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from anyone regarding today's meeting? Seeing any? Okay. Right, thank you. Right, item 4, which is public question time. Now we have one public speaker today, which is Mr. Pakes. Mr. Pakes, when you're ready, sir, you can stay there. I think that microphone. Oh, sorry, my apologies, please. Yes, I'm. Please, when you're comfortable, Mr. Pakes, push the right-hand button. The red light comes on, and your 3 minutes start when you start speaking. So when you're comfortable, get comfortable first, sir. Good afternoon.
Right, thank you, Chairman. My questions relate to the planning application that was discussed at the last planning committee. That was the proposed bridge over the River Tone. My first question is really why Councillor Rigby was allowed to speak and vote at that meeting when clearly he had a prejudicial interest and which was not declared. In your own Code of Good Practice, it says where you have significantly been involved in the preparation, submission or advocacy of a planning proposal, you should always disclose a prejudicial as well as a personal interest and withdraw from the meeting of the planning committee. At that meeting, Councillor Rigby said, amongst other things, after a review of the original proposal, he said we were able to get our engineers to take another look. We did think that this proposal initially, but we were advised that for engineering reasons, the bridge couldn't be adapted properly. But you speak to a different engineer and apparently it can. Now that, to me, spells out that in fact he was speaking from the perspective of the applicant, which was Somerset Council, and not really giving him a fair and impartial view of that particular planning application. I wrote to the planning chairman expressing my concern, but I have not had a reply, and that was from the 5th of September. The second point is Town Council's objection. At that same meeting, West Monkton Parish Council made an objection, and their objection was actually read out and duly minuted. I want to know why the Town Council's was not read out and duly minuted. I wrote to the council leader, Councillor Deacon, who was actually a member also of the All Council, expressing my concern that they didn't present their case at the particular meeting. Again, I didn't receive a reply to that either. This doesn't really smack of great transparency or engaging with the public who are asking particular questions that affect democracy. The third point is the planning officer's report. Now, pardon? Right. He said on that report, if permission were not granted and the opportunity lost, then so would be the funding, which is specifically linked to the scheme. Now, that's not a material planning consideration, and it should never have been mentioned in his report. And I think there's a case here of maladministration, and I'm strongly minded to go to the Ombudsman and make my complaint there.
I will make a brief response to you, sir. I'm going to advise you, thank you for bringing your comments to the Planning Committee. I would advise you that you will receive a written response to your questions within the week, and that you are, of course, as you full well know, entitled to submit a formal complaint, which, if you do so, will be dealt with under the Council's normal standard procedure. Which would be explained in a letter back to you, should you choose to do so. So that's the position we're in on that, that you will have a full written response. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to our agenda, item 5 on our agenda, which is the application 42/23/0042, which is the land at Sweethay Troll. Now, this application, as chair of the committee, I have deferred this item because it is not complete. As a background, so we're not going to discuss it today. As a background, this application is subject to a Habitats Regulations Assessment, HRA, which has been undertaken by the Council's Nutrient Neutrality Officer, the details of which are set out in the committee report. Prior to adopting the HRA, the Council is required to consult with Natural England and must take into account any representations received. Natural England have now responded to this consultation and have advised that they require additional information and clarifications in respect of the potential impacts of the development in order to be able to conclude that there would be no likely significant adverse impact on the protected site. The consultation response from Natural England was received after the publication of the committee report, and the Council's Nutrient Neutrality Officer is currently considering the matters raised by Natural England. This is likely to require further clarifications in respect of the proposed mitigation and will require the preparation of a new Habitat Regulations Assessment, which will also be subject to consultation with Natural England. For these reasons, it was recommended that the item would be deferred from this meeting to allow further consideration of the potential phosphate impacts arising from the development and to allow for a new HRA to be undertaken. That's why I made a decision to withdraw it from this meeting, and that's why it was withdrawn today. So that closes the formal side of our meeting, but in public session still we have the only other item on our agenda, which is the appeal. Gary, do you want to say anything on the appeals? Just appeals singular, sorry.
Just very briefly, Chair, you'll see that the one decision reported is an appeal that was allowed back in on the 12th of September. It's a domestic extension, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about it. But as we're here, it's a 2-story front extension, which on the face of it is like, well, that's a big development. And I think there was some justification in the delegated refusal of the proposal. But obviously the applicants appealed, and the planning inspector, having carried out a site visit, came to a different view than the council's officers about the proposal. The house in question is set back quite some distance from the main highway, described the proposal. You've obviously got the full appeal decision in your papers anyway, but said that the proposal would be glimpsed from the road through gaps between houses, would not be prominent from the road, and would not harm the character or appearance of the road, and felt that it wouldn't be out of keeping with the mixed character of development in the locality as well. Set out the policy context in terms of the Taunton Deane adopted site allocations and development management plan, including the core strategy as well, and also made reference to the to design guidance as well, and felt on balance, because sometimes these things can be a bit subjective, on balance considered that the proposal was acceptable. The inspector also considered the other planning issues that were before him, which was, would there be loss of light or overbearing effect or loss of privacy of the neighbouring properties. Considered that none of those would apply, and whilst there were windows on the side elevation of the proposed front extension, they would be obscurely glazed, and there would be a condition which he then imposed to for them to be top hung and to be obscurely glazed. So whilst it's always disappointing to have an appeal allowed when the council's refused permission, the inspector explained his reasons quite clearly, and so it's not a case where you look at that as we made the wrong decision. It's just that another individual's looked at it and come to a different point of view. So we're happy to take any questions on that if the committee have any.
Any questions? As Gary says, it's always disappointing when we lose an appeal, even if it is a relatively minor one. The inspector, as they do sometimes, took a contrary view to ours. I've never really quite understood how an inspector's mind works. They do this quite frequently. I won't say any more. Okay, so that will bring our meeting to a close today. We will advise everybody of the meeting dates in November. Thank you very much for all your attendance, and I look forward to seeing you all next month. Thank you, one and all.